Hoy estamos muy contentos de encontrarnos con todos ustedes y en este momento para conversar acerca de la importancia de la herramienta del blockchain en la industria energética. Y la pregunta que nos hacemos hoy día es si esta es una herramienta, parte de una evolución o es una revolución de nuestro sistema. Para esto nos encontramos con nuestros extraordinarios panelistas, expertos en la materia, con quienes podremos iluminar nuestra conversación. Esta mañana conversaremos con dos representantes miembros de entidades socias de Web Chile, el señor David Noé de Transelec y la señora Paula Frigerio de Abastible, y comenzaremos con dos invitados internacionales con una presentación que realizarán estos participantes. Esta mañana comenzamos con la presentación de Philip Richards y Sara Mamel, ambos representantes de la Agencia de Energía Alemana DENA. Nuestros expositores realizarán una presentación de contexto acerca de las tendencias y oportunidades del blockchain para el sector energético a nivel mundial. Para quienes no los conocen, Philip Richard es jefe de la División de Tecnologías Digitales y Redes de la Agencia Alemana de Energía, DENA. Él es ingeniero industrial y su función en DENA es, entre otras cosas, ser el responsable del Future Energy Lab de DENA, el laboratorio piloto con sede en Berlín para las tecnologías digitales en la industria energética. Philip también es responsable de los estudios blockchain en la transición energética integrada e inteligencia artificial del bombo a la realidad de la industria energética. Por otro lado, Sara cuenta con formación en ciencias políticas y centrada anteriormente en la política energética internacional. Sara se ha dedicado a todos los temas digitales en la Agencia Alemana de la Energía, DENA, donde es experta senior en la división de tecnologías digitales y redes. Su tema de especialización es la tecnología blockchain, y Sara está tratando de mostrar el potencial de esta tecnología para nuestro sector a través de la dirección del proyecto piloto Blockchain Machine Identity Ledger. Así es que ahora me cambio de switch al inglés para darles la más cordial bienvenida a nuestros expositores. Very welcome, Philip and Sara, and thank you for being here with us from Germany to Chile to talk today about this important tool that's been developed in many applications that we will learn and recognize today. Very welcome, Philip and Sara.
Thank you very much for having us here. Okay, so I try to share my screen now. Just give me a second. So you can see the full presentation now, right?
Perfect, thank you.
Okay, so I would start if it's okay for you. So good morning to all of you. It's a pleasure to be part of this webinar today and to exchange on our projects and current developments in the blockchain for energy space. And I'm also very curious to hear about the developments and pilot projects that are happening in Chile later in our discussion. So my name is Philip Richard, as already mentioned. I'm director of the unit for digital technologies and networks here at the German Energy Agency, and together with my colleague Sarah, we will be giving you an introduction about the potential of blockchain technology for the energy transition. So thanks again for having us, and let's start with a few words on who we are as DENA and what our evolution in the blockchain and digital space is so far. So at DENA, as a German energy agency, we like to call ourselves a think tank for applied energy transition here in Germany. We are a center for energy efficiency, renewable energy sources, and system integration as well. And actually, the energy efficiency aspect is also a quite very relevant topic regarding digital processes. We have an intensive discussion here in Germany regarding the power needed for digital-driven use cases like streaming, or maybe more relevant for today, the use of blockchain technology for several use cases, just to give you two examples. In our role as an agency, we bring together politics, industry, science, and society, and like to see ourselves as a platform to boost dialogue with stakeholders from various industry and fields. We also obviously work together with the federal government for its energy and climate policy strategy, and we see ourselves as an enabler of the energy transition. more and more in pilot projects, but this will Sarah point out later in more detail. So as I already mentioned, my unit has a focus in digital topics such as blockchain, artificial intelligence, and other relevant action fields along the data value chain. And here you can see some of our most relevant studies of the last years. Most of them are meanwhile also available in English. If you are interested, just contact us. And for us, it is very interesting to see the long way we have come since 2016. I am sure you all remember the hype from back then when the first pilot projects in blockchain for energy, such as the Brooklyn microgrid, for example, happened. It received a lot of media attention, so they were great for marketing purpose of the companies involved, but we could see that their approach was also rather explorative, trial and error, so how far we get, and they soon reached some serious regulatory boundaries. And that is why we at DENA got the conclusion that we need a new structure, a new roof for pilot projects if we want to prepare ourselves for the energy system of the future. So why do we need such a structure? There are a few points to highlight here. The energy system is becoming more and more decentralized. We need interoperability between the different sectors. Companies of the energy sector and the digital sector should work together more closely, and startups need to be brought together with established corporate enterprises. And also the broader society should become part of the process. For all those reasons, the roof for our pilot project was founded by us, which is called the Future Energy Lab. We created the lab as part of the national blockchain strategy of the German government. And the goal is to bring companies and institutions of the energy and digital sphere more and more together. Today, it is more a virtual workspace, and we will soon, hopefully in autumn, also open our physical Future Energy Lab here in Berlin. You could see the lab as a sandbox for ideas, where we are currently working on publications, concepts, demonstrators, and pilots on many different topics around the digital ecosystem. Projects from a variety of energy topics, always with a focus on how digitalization can be used to advance the energy transition. Just to give you some examples, we are testing the use of AI for heating system optimization and power grids, and also automation processes in the ecosystem of Industry 4.0 are very relevant for us. We will also focus on smart contracts and the role that they will play in the energy system of the future. As I already mentioned, the topic of energy efficiency from and through digitalization will also occupy us a great deal in the future, as we can see in the discussions regarding the energy consumption of the Bitcoin blockchain. Just to give you another example, we will investigate how the energy consumption of blockchains can be reduced within the Future Energy Lab. Of course, we will continue to get a better knowledge base by preparing more and more relevant publications like we did in the past. But above all, we also want to do a lot of testing in the future. Here we distinguish between three types of projects. As a first stage, concepts that can be understood as guidelines for later piloting and as a kind of feasibility study will take place. And on a second layer, demonstrator projects, which are intended to test higher level digital technologies on the basis of specific use cases. And finally, also pilots that have the greatest practical relevance and where concrete digital technologies and applications are close to market and ready to get deployed will be part of the Future Energy Lab. We started 2020 with a blockchain machine identity ledger. the smart contract register, and the CO2 data demonstrator project. And we are particularly pleased that our project portfolio has grown so much since then. When we speak about digitalization in the energy system, we like to combine vertical and horizontal integration. Let me try to explain that a bit. To reduce CO2 emissions and to reach climate goals, the energy industry is making progress in transforming towards a future energy system that is less reliant on fossil fuels and instead built on different renewable technologies. For success, the energy system needs to change fundamentally in all sectors, energy, heat, and transport. But when optimizing each sector in isolation, not all potentials can be exploited. We need to link them, and that is what we call horizontal integration due to digitalization. In the energy system of tomorrow as well, digital hardware and software will also become an essential link to facilitate technical coordination between the sectors and also offers vertical options for better linking the value creation stages: generation, transportation, trade, and consumption. This is what we call vertical integration. Therefore, digitalization provides the necessary degrees of freedom, thus creating technical and financial alternatives for action. In today's webinar, we want to deep dive into blockchain technology. And for me, the most fascinating and underlying feature of the technology is that it creates a new form of trust between people, institutions, or machines, which is purely based on mathematics. If we look back in time and in the history of humanity, we first and for a very long time were relying on a direct and informal exchange. And a second step, we then created centralized institutions like banks, for example, in which we put trust and which executed all kinds of transactions for us. These institutions later became globalized and are working mostly in a digital way. In the future, however, and especially in the energy context, it's about gaining trust in an increasingly digitally supported energy system. We can only achieve this if digital processes support us. Human and institutional trust alone is not longer enough. And the fascinating thing is that blockchain technology is offering us means to create this trust with no intermediaries involved and in a very, very transparent way. When it comes to the use of blockchain technology in the energy sector specifically, I will now hand over to Sarah so she can tell you more about our actual use cases. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Philip, and hello everybody from my side as well. Yeah, so let's dive into the topic. I mean, Philip made a great introduction already, telling you about the beginnings of blockchain technology in the energy sector. I'm sure you can all remember these days. It was 2015-16 with the first pilot projects that, yes, had this marketing aspect mostly, but then sooner or later came to an end because of mostly regulatory boundaries. And this is where actually our idea for the DENA blockchain study came up. So it was back in 2017-18 when we started to ask ourselves these questions, like what are the actual opportunities of blockchain and distributed ledger technologies in the energy sector, and what goes beyond the hype and which aspects should be actually taken for serious. And because in general, of course, if you look at both topics, the decentralized nature of blockchain fits very well with the new decentralized electricity architecture of renewables, where millions of assets have to be coordinated and one day, hopefully, in a fully automated way. And of course, also blockchain's features of transparency and immutability are in general interesting ones for a critical infrastructure like the energy system, where the system security, of course, has always been a major concern. But we had to analyze first if, and if yes, where this connection between blockchain and the energy system actually makes sense. So this is why back in 2019, our DENA blockchain study was published, and we can call it our landmark achievement, which is really the go-to document if you want to learn about blockchain in the integrated energy transition. I'm pretty sure that we also have a Spanish translation by now in cooperation with the GIZ. So make sure to look that up. And in the study, you can see we identified 11 different use cases with strong potential for blockchain in the energy sector. And then we analyzed each of them from the technical, economic, and regulatory point of view. So that means that a team of experts actually evaluated each use case from different angles. And with this structure, so technical, economic, regulatory, we analyze the use cases you can see on the chart. And one result is that everything is much more complex than we thought in the beginning, and that it is very important to really go into the details and just stop saying blockchain will solve all the problems that we are facing when we talk about energy transition. But what the study also made very clear was that after this theoretical overview, it is important to put things into action now and establish a new generation of pilot projects that are built on a strong theoretical background, especially when it comes to regulatory limitation. I think we can go to the next slide. And this is the reason why we are meanwhile managing our first blockchain pilot project, which is the blockchain machine identity ledger, with over 20 partners involved, as you can see on the chart here, from ranging from startups and research institutes up to really big digital and industry players. And the idea behind the project, which actually started as one of the use cases from the blockchain study, the use case number 3, was to develop a new decentralized and digital identity for assets and energy devices, and to connect this identity with the security and immutability of the blockchain, and create the blockchain machine identity ledger, which in the future could allow us an automatic registration and participation of devices in the energy market. Because I don't know, probably you don't know, but the status quo of registration today in Germany is that assets are being signed in via a centralized core market data registry, which basically, I mean, it's online, but it's still like an Excel table. It's public, but it's not automatically linked to the asset. So you really have to type in each asset manually. And what we wanted to do is to create a digital enhancement and add-on to this registry to make it ready for the energy system of the future, but also go beyond that and take the first step towards the infrastructure and create sort of a highway for the future energy system. And of course, we also wanted to test in this project if blockchain technology is actually the preferable back-end infrastructure for this ledger. Can go ahead. Here you can just see another overview of the types of actors that are involved in the project. So just to showcase that it's really all parts of energy system players and also the digital sphere that is involved. Let's keep going to the definition, what the project is actually about. So you can see that with the project, the goal is to create this new decentralized identity. So this is the machine identity part of the name. And Next, we are trying to take this identity and connect it to the ledger part, so this decentralized digital registry, to enable an automatic registration of assets in the energy system. Yeah, exactly. And the project has by design chosen to rely on the highly secure and certified German smart meter gateway infrastructure, which guarantees a really secure chain of trust for the energy system from a hardware side. And another of the major USPs of the project, from our view, are the principles of technology openness and interoperability. So with so many new developments happening in the blockchain ecosystem right now, with the new frameworks yes, being developed like next to the traditional Ethereum framework, and also the German energy system being really hyper heterogeneous and really decentralized with so many roles and actors involved, we didn't think it was the right fit to really decide for one type of development framework only, but instead we chose to try out three different methods of connecting the devices to the ledger, two different blockchain development frameworks. One is Ethereum based, the other one substrate based, and also two different environments for these decentralized identities. And speaking of the identities, or the DIDs, how we call them, so they are one of the big factors of the project contributing to the innovation side, because as you already probably have heard, decentralized identities are really one of the hottest topics nowadays, so to say. And yeah, I will also get more into detail on that. But we can go to the next slide, Philip. Here you can see like a broad outline of the project. So from the bottom up, you can see that devices are first creating their decentralized identity, and then they are registering via the smart meter gateway on the ledger, but only leaving the identifier, so a hash number, on the blockchain, so which is a bare number and doesn't contain any more information. And the further information, so for example, where the device is located, who is the owner, what is the capacity, and so on. This information is stored in so-called identity wallets, which in our case are distributed in 3 different locations, which I will also go more into detail later. But in this way, we ensure that the blockchain is not overloaded and that it is only serving its registry role, while the data actually remains in the hands of the asset owner, and the person, or in the future, the device itself, can decide who can actually access the data. And after we have tested and proven the secure registration of assets on our identity ledger, the next step would be to enable system services and also specific use cases, such as proof of origin, flexibility markets, smart CO2 certificates, or energy communities, just to name a few options. And yeah, we are currently in the rollout phase of the project. So the devices are connected, we are collecting the data, and the report on the project will be published by autumn. We can go one slide further. Here you can just see, like, briefly on the hardware side, our 2 approaches, which basically differentiate each other on the question where this special hardware device is located, which is connecting the device with the blockchain. So on the one side, you can see it is actually on the device itself. So for example, on the PV panel, and in the first example, it is located on the smart meter gateway. So we just wanted to try out different options. And if we go one step further, I just wanted to briefly like introduce you to the basics of this decentralized identity topic, because I think this is a really central one for this project, but also for, I think, really many blockchain use cases in the energy sector in the future. So yeah, what is the special thing about these decentralized identities? And it is that you have the differentiation between, on the one hand, the identifier, and on the other hand, the attributes, features, which we call verifiable credentials. So an identity is always comprised of the two pieces, which together form a decentralized identity. So if you take a person, for example, you have your passport, your ID, and the number which is located on the passport would be your identifier. But of course, to really describe your identity in a more detailed way, we need additional information, like, for example, your name, your education, the universities you have studied at, your biographies, your hobbies, interests, your physical features, and all of this information is stored in the verifiable credentials. And together, again, we have like your decentralized identity. And if we go one step below, to look at energy devices, in our case, it is the same thing. So you have the identifier, which is the number, which in our pilot project will be written in the blockchain. But you have also, okay, I can see we have like a little mistake here on the slide, but yes, the identifier is of course again combined with verifiable credentials, which in case of energy device would be the question, where is the device located, who is the owner of the device, what is the capacity, what is the grid level where it is connected, and in the future, of course, also dynamic data. So how much energy is this device generating, how much is it consuming? And these two parts, again, form the decentralized identity of a device. And if we go one slide further, we can see why all this is so interesting, and also in regards to our project. So it was really, I think the magic of all this is that the storage of the two pieces is located in different, in a different location. So the ID number is in one location, and all the features, attributes, verifiable credentials are in a different location. And what does it mean for our project, for the USPs, is that you can, on the one hand, really combine the USPs of the blockchain, which we know are decentrality, the very high transparency, immutability, which means that it's safe from manipulation. And on the other hand, you have the USPs of this digital identities, which means that even though you are using blockchain as a backend technology, you still have data sovereignty. You can ensure GDPR compliance and data protection, and you have a high degree of verifiability. And yes, we try to bring both USPs together and create this automated system for the energy system of the future. Yeah, and here you can just see briefly like where in our pilot these three different locations are where we put the verifiable credentials, so the features and attributes of the devices. So on the one hand, we have it on the smart meter gateway system. On the other side, we have the wallet on the device itself again. And we also try a third approach where, which is like a cloud edge approach. So the attributes, verifiable credentials, are stored in the cloud. And we can go one slide further, which basically shows like which is our utopic vision, like where do we want to get with all this as an outlook for the future, here you can see like how we imagine all that, how it could play out in the future. So yes, a decentralized identity is created by a device, and it contains, of course, all the attributes, like we just said, type, location, capacity, grid level. And yes, you make them anonymous with this unique identifier. And in the third step, you channel the identifier through the, in our German cases, secure smart meter gateway system. And then it gets really interesting, because then this information about the asset can be transferred to different market roles. So on the one hand, you have really system relevant services, so services that are important for the survival, for the security of the critical infrastructure, so of important market roles. And on the other hand, you also transmit the data, of course, to private companies who can enable value-added systems or services, so all kinds of use cases that you could imagine. And the thing that is so special about this model is that through this decentralized identity, we will be able to ensure that only specific data sets or attributes will reach the market participants that they have to reach. So only the market participants which have the authorization to actually see this data. And so this model, it promotes a strong role of data ownership, because the data owner always has the last word regarding who can access the data. It is at the same time GDPR compliant, so data security, very important. And it also lays a good foundation for a future data economy, which will enable new use cases in the industry. And yes, I think that was enough as a first outlook. And thank you very much. And I'm looking forward to the discussion now.
Thank you, Sara, and thanks also to Philip for this great exposition. Luego de esta interesante exposición de wrap-up general de lo que están haciendo en Alemania a través de la Agencia de Energía DENA, damos paso a nuestro panel de conversación, donde Philip y Sara también formarán parte. Para guiar nuestra conversación esta mañana nos acompaña Alejandra Salazar. Alejandra es ingeniera, actualmente se desempeña como Senior Manager at Renewable Energy en Wood PLC, Share Impact and Knowledge del World Economic Forum, Future Energy Leader, FEL100 del World Energy Council y además embajadora Women in Energy Web Chile. Así es que para nosotros Ale no es más que una amiga. Muy buenos días, Alejandra.
Muy buenos días, muchas gracias por el tiempo. Encantada y muy buenas presentaciones, excelente, muchas gracias, Felipe, Sara. Bueno, ahora estoy encantada de presentarles a los dos siguientes panelistas, que es Paula Figuero y David Noé. Paula Figuero es ingeniera civil industrial de la Pontificia Universidad Católica de Chile y posee un MBA por el MIT. Bueno, ella se ha desarrollado en diferentes posiciones, desde gerente de inversiones en ENAP, gerente de desarrollo en Bechtel, actualmente es la gerente de desarrollo e innovación de Abastible, además de liderar áreas de estudios de McKinsey Company y en la actualidad también vinculada como consejera de la Asociación Mundial de GLP. David Noé, vicepresidente de Asuntos Corporativos y Sostenibilidad de Transelec. Él es ingeniero civil de la Universidad Católica y tiene un máster en políticas públicas de la Universidad de Harvard. Desde hace lidera la gestión ambiental comunitaria de asuntos públicos de la empresa y adicionalmente forman parte de los directorios de Web Chile y Acción Empresas. Nuestros dos panelistas de hoy actualmente también están viendo los temas de blockchain, están desarrollando proyectos y bueno, actualmente realizando dentro de sus compañías proyectos relacionados con la eficiencia energética desde el lado de Abastible y también así como la trazabilidad y certificación desde el lado de Transelec. Así que voy a iniciar esta pregunta para ambos. Me interesaría saber un poco qué iniciativas actualmente están desarrollando o ya se han implementado en Transelec y Abastible. Cualquiera de los dos puede iniciar, por favor.
Bueno, primero que nada, Alejandra, muchas gracias por esa presentación. Les cuento un poco cuál es el origen del producto que desarrollamos. O sea, nosotros hoy día nos definimos como una empresa de energías limpias, más allá del GLP, y estamos comercializando otros productos como energía eléctrica, paneles fotovoltaicos. Vemos en nuestros consumidores la necesidad de descarbonizar, porque hay un interés público que está siendo guiado por un lado por la legislación y por otro lado por los consumidores, especialmente los más jóvenes que están muy preocupados por tener un planeta limpio. Entonces, en ese contexto, nosotros hacemos muchos recambios de combustible, de combustibles más contaminantes al GLP, como es la leña, el fuel, el diésel. El gas es un combustible de transición por excelencia. Y también implementamos muchos proyectos de eficiencia energética, básicamente en el sector industrial y comercial. Entonces, y viene también la ley de eficiencia energética, que para todos los grandes consumidores va a llevar a la implementación de sistemas de gestión de energía, y asociado a esto a que las empresas tengan que reportar su consumo energético y la reducción de su consumo energético según las metas establecidas. Entonces, nosotros creamos un producto que, asociado a nuestros proyectos de eficiencia energética, permite registrar la disminución en el consumo energético y su asociado reducción en CO2. Ese es el producto así a grandes rasgos. Este producto uno lo puede, hay un landing donde está acceso al producto, si los certificados se emiten mensualmente, entonces uno ve el consumo energético inicial y cuánto va reduciendo, hay consumo, mide tanto el consumo energético como el consumo térmico, y hay un landing donde tiene acceso según los requerimientos de la empresa, o la propia empresa nada más, o puede abrirlo al público general, o podría ser solo a los entes que ellos estimaran, como por ejemplo a los entes regulatorios. También se puede asociar al producto, por ejemplo, si por ejemplo en una viña fuera importante para la viña que tuvieran acceso, se puede poner un código QR en el producto, y al escanear el código QR llega directamente al landing donde ves las mejoras que ha realizado la empresa que tiene este producto. Entonces, ese es a grandes rasgos nuestro producto.
Fantástico, muchas gracias. Y muy interesante, Paula. David, si nos quieres contar también acerca de qué es lo que están haciendo en Transelec.
Claro, muchas gracias, Alejandra, Trinidad, por la invitación, y a mis colegas panelistas. En Transelec nosotros hace algunos meses atrás lanzamos una iniciativa que se llama Pulse. Esta iniciativa es una plataforma de visualización y de trazabilidad de energía eléctrica. Lo que permite hacer Pulse es transar atributos renovables entre una empresa de generación, energía eléctrica renovable, y una planta industrial que consuma esa energía renovable, con el objeto de que esta planta industrial pueda demostrarle a sus clientes finales que la energía que utiliza es efectivamente renovable. ¿Cómo funciona la práctica Pulse? Nosotros instalamos un dispositivo en la planta de generación de energía eléctrica, otro dispositivo en la planta industrial donde se está consumiendo esta energía eléctrica. Estos son dispositivos IoT, Internet of Things, que lo que hacen es conectarse a la nube, y utilizamos blockchain para registrar las transacciones entre la generación y el consumo. Así funciona básicamente. Y que lo que le permite al dueño de la planta industrial ver en línea el tipo de energía que está consumiendo, y al igual como hacía Paula con sus clientes finales de la viña, la etiqueta va a poder tener un segundo código QR en el cual se va a poder revisar el tipo de energía que se consumió en la elaboración de ese producto. ¿Qué beneficio adicional tiene Pulse? Hoy día los contratos de energía renovable tienen una resolución anual. Anualmente uno compra un contrato con una cantidad de energía y uno puede decir, mira, yo compré esta cierta cantidad de energía anual y está respaldada por un contrato, por un PPA de energía renovable. Pulse nos permite pasar de una resolución anual a una resolución mensual, semanal, e incluso podemos llegar a una resolución de cada 15 minutos para saber cada 15 minutos el tipo de energía que se consumió en esta planta industrial. ¿Cuál es la apuesta? Al igual que en el caso de Paula, que los consumidores finales valoran los atributos renovables en sus productos. Y esto lo demuestran un par de hechos bastante notables. El año pasado, por ejemplo, BHP terminó anticipadamente un contrato de energía con una empresa de generación no renovable y eso le costó más de $700 millones para poder utilizar energía renovable en la producción de sus productos de cobre. Y Acción Empresas el año 2019 hizo un estudio en el cual indicaba que un 45% de los chilenos y las chilenas valoraban mucho que los productos que consumían fuesen respetuosos con el medio ambiente en los procesos de elaboración. ¿Cómo nos ha ido con Pulse? Pulse ya lo lanzamos hace algunos meses atrás. Hoy día estamos monitoreando 8 plantas de generación en distintos lugares de Chile. Tenemos 750 megawatts hoy día en los distintos procesos de conexión con Pulse, muchos operando y otros en etapa de conexión. Y nuestra meta al 2021, a fines de este año, es llegar de los 750 a los 1000 megawatts.
Muchísimas gracias, David. Muy buena presentación. Ambos proyectos son bastante interesantes, van a aportar muchísimo a la revolución del blockchain. Ahora ya se está viendo a nivel mundial y justamente es lo que se quiere realizar también en Chile y en América Latina. Desde esa perspectiva, y desde su perspectiva, mejor dicho, ¿qué beneficios trae desarrollar esta tecnología? Y además de eso, ¿qué desafíos encontraron en el camino cuando estaban desarrollándola? Tal vez empezamos por ti, David.
Muchas gracias, Alejandra. Bueno, en Transelec nosotros estamos desarrollando, impulsando la innovación y la transformación digital hace un tiempo. Ese proceso ha sido un proceso muy intenso, pero hoy día ya contamos con un portafolio bastante amplio de proyectos de innovación y transformación digital a los cuales le hacemos seguimiento de manera periódica. Muchas de las iniciativas han estado enfocadas en el mejoramiento de nuestra operación y en el buscar mejoras en competitividad en desarrollo de proyectos, pero también hay muchas otras iniciativas que han ido a modernizar el sistema eléctrico, a modernizar la industria eléctrica. Y justamente ahí es donde nace Pulse. Pulse el año 2019 partió como un piloto en 4 subestaciones en las cuales nosotros instalamos capacidad de generación solar y medimos cómo funcionaba la transferencia de energía y el registro de esta transferencia de energía entre estas distintas plantas que instalamos. Yo te diría que hemos enfrentado 2 desafíos principalmente. El primero es que nosotros somos una empresa B2B. Nuestros clientes son clientes industriales, pero cuando estamos pensando en ponerle un código QR al producto final, es un cambio de mentalidad que es bastante fuerte para una empresa que es B2B, en que tenemos que pensar en los consumidores final y ni siquiera en el consumidor eléctrico, sino que en el consumidor de todos los productos. Por lo tanto, son todos los chilenos y las chilenas los que podrían ser un eventual usuario del producto que nosotros tenemos. Y ese yo te diría que ha sido el primer desafío. Yo te diría que el segundo desafío ha sido romper el status quo de la certificación energética. Hoy día tenemos una certificación energética que se basa en contratos anuales. En el fondo, lo que se hace es certificar que una planta, la cantidad de megawatt hora que consume en un año una planta, está respaldada por un contrato renovable que entrega esa cantidad de megawatt hora. Pero nosotros queremos ir a una mayor resolución porque esos contratos anuales no me aseguran que en cada momento esa planta está consumiendo energía renovable, lo que te dice que el balance anual coincide. Lo que nos permite Pulse es pasar de esos balances anuales a un balance que puede llegar incluso a los 15 minutos. Pero eso no nos ha sido fácil porque toda la estructura contractual está basada en contratos anuales. Y ese status quo es el que yo te diría ha sido uno de los desafíos más importantes que hemos encontrado.
Muchísimas gracias, David. Wow, grandes desafíos, desde ver todos los consumidores, desde el consumidor final y adicional la parte del status quo que explicaste, muy interesante. Paula, por favor, si nos quieres contar un poco de los desafíos, bueno, en sí los beneficios y después los desafíos que tuviste en Abastible.
Mira, yo creo que los desafíos continúan. Este es un producto muy incipiente. Yo creo que parte de los desafíos es, primero, adaptar a la fuerza de venta, porque la fuerza de venta requiere un cambio cultural muy grande para entender estos productos y para poder ofrecerlos y para poder explicarles los beneficios a los clientes. Segundo, yo creo que también estamos en un proceso de ir perfeccionando y agregándole más valor al producto. Nosotros vemos esto, tal vez en este minuto nos ha costado comercializar este producto, lo estamos sí usando también dentro de Abastible. Nosotros ya implementamos un sistema de gestión de energía en nuestra primera planta en Planta Lenga, que estamos aquí en Concepción. Ahora estamos implementándolo también en nuestra planta más grande, Maipú, y asociamos las eficiencias en estas plantas con estos certificados. Pero el valor que nosotros vemos más allá de, bueno, tenemos un tema que el valor que vemos en esto primero es un aprendizaje de nosotros como organización para ya ir entendiendo cómo funciona esta herramienta y los valores que le podemos entregar a las empresas con esto. Y vemos que el futuro de esto, más allá de la reportabilidad, es transformarse en un ente valorado. Entonces creemos que estos certificados, estamos trabajando en este minuto de ellos, eventualmente van a poder transformarse en bonos transables en los mercados internacionales de bonos de carbono. Entonces ahí no solo generaría un beneficio de reportabilidad que puede ser interesante para las compañías, sino también un beneficio económico. Y esa es la mirada más de largo plazo del tema. Entonces te diría que esos son los grandes desafíos, seguir desarrollando estos productos para que podamos entregarles más valor al producto y hacerlos aún más interesantes y entendiendo las necesidades del cliente. Y los cambios culturales en la empresa, yo te diría también nosotros pasar a ser de una empresa que era un proveedor de GLP, que como dice mi jefe, nosotros pasábamos de un estanque más grande a un estanque más chico, a ser una empresa que vende soluciones energéticas, que requiere tecnología, que requiere entender, que son proyectos complejos. Entonces, todo ese cambio cultural es muy importante y hace falta una fuerza de venta capacitada, que entienda, especialistas técnicos, los perfiles de las personas, y poder también hacer que el cliente traspasarle este conocimiento y que ellos vean los beneficios. Y esos son los desafíos más grandes que vemos.
Muchísimas gracias, Paula. Sí, efectivamente, bueno, ustedes están en esta etapa de descubrir nuevos desafíos adicionalmente que están implementando la tecnología. Y tienes mucha razón en esto de que las empresas de energía actualmente están viendo este tema de la tecnología como un desafío adicional y lo están implementando. Y es muy importante que eso suceda, ya lo está haciendo Transelec, Abastible, y me imagino que muchas otras empresas de energía lo van a aplicar también ahora. Muchísimas gracias a ambos, han sido muy interesantes las respuestas a las preguntas. Nos encantaría seguir preguntando, seguramente si nos alcanza un poquito de tiempo al final. Right now I am going to switch to English because I want to ask some questions for Philippe and Sarah. And first of all, I want to say thank you for the presentations that were amazing. So as Philippe and Sarah mentioned, create a vertical and horizontal structure in the change of energy involving generation, transport, distribution, as well as the technical, economical perspective and regulation. All of these are now with blockchain in order to reduce fossil fuels and then increase the use of renewable energy. So currently, there are many companies that are, and people, of course, interested in carrying out blockchain projects here in Chile and also in Latin America. So the question is, from your perspective, Philippe and Sarah, what will be the 3 most important steps to start these projects? What a blockchain project required to be kicked off? Yes.
Okay, I try to give an answer, and maybe Sarah, you can add. So I think in a first step, you really have to distinguish between you understand blockchain or you understand blockchain really. I guess you have to invest some times into the topic, because understanding the soul of blockchain is very important to understand what options you as a company have to develop new use cases. And it's very, very important that you bring together the knowledge about blockchain and the knowledge about your own company, because your own company companies differentiate from each other a lot. Some are very good linked to customers. Some are working on the first steps of a value chain, hardware oriented, and so on. And the blockchain technology is a tool which gives you the option to think processes totally different in a digital way. The opposite of a platform is blockchain in a way. So or the platform character is moving to a higher layer, because data economy, you have to think about data economy in a different way. You have to think about trust in a different way. And as I already mentioned in the presentation at the beginning, I really like to deep dive into the understanding of digital trust in the future. How you can use blockchain technology to spend trust into each kind of process, and this is often a question of the use case itself, and different. Maybe Sarah, you want to add something?
Thank you. Yes, please, Sarah, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. Yes, I can only add again that you really have to take a deep dive, like what is the goal of your use case, like what actually which outcomes do you want to achieve, and put this next to the actual USPs of blockchain technology and see how well it fits, because blockchain is not the solution for everything. There are still like centralized options which might actually fit better. So really make this check first and diligently. It's what many of these first pilot projects they didn't really do, and especially, of course, the regulatory challenges they play a crucial role to see like how big the hurdles, the obstacles actually can be, and maybe it's better to start first with a use case that is not as highly regulated and which offers yes, like first results quicker with this technology. But it was very interesting to hear the examples of Abastible and Transelec, and to see actually that in Chile, in Latin America, it's basically the same use cases that are on top. So which you could see like really the USP of the blockchain technology. So being this registry factor, right, to enable the tracking and the proof of origins and renewable energy certificates. Yes, it is also like a very, very hot topic here in Germany that we are discussing. And as David also pointed out, like the regulatory framework here as well is not on this level yet, but these are topics that we are also probably in the next phase of the blockchain machine identity ledger will address, like for example proof of origin for hydrogen, for electricity, and also try to get on this higher level of tracking intervals, like David said, so to actually get to the 15 minutes, which of course, yeah, is like a real first mover thing, and the regulatory framework for it is not there yet. But well, yeah, we will see how it will work out.
Thank you very much, Sarah and Philippe. Well, definitely start first with outcomes you want to achieve with the use case that you mentioned, Sarah. Check all the regulatory framework, as well as a deep dive in the digital trust, as Philippe mentioned as well. For sure will increase all the transparency in all processes in the energy sector, as well as other sectors. So I want to say thank you, Philippe and Sarah. Very interesting presentation. For sure, we would like to know more about these advances you are doing in the future. Well, now I am going to switch to Spanish again. Entonces, muchísimas gracias y voy a pasarle la palabra a Trinidad para que ella pueda seguir con la presentación. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Alejandra. Lamentablemente estos 60 minutos se transforman en lo mismo que nada cuando hablamos de un tema tan interesante como el que tenemos o traemos a la mesa hoy día. Además, con dos extraordinarios expositores que vienen desde DENA, Alemania, y dos representantes, miembros de entidades socias de WEC Chile, como son Abastible y Transelec, con sus extraordinarios emprendimientos o iniciativas en las materias de blockchain. Pensar en la confianza de una manera diferente, nos decía Philip, transformar un negocio B2B a uno B2C, cambio cultural, revolución regulatoria, modificación en las conductas y comportamientos, cómo trasladamos un servicio y proceso tan industrial y lo transformamos en un producto final con valor agregado para los consumidores. Sin duda, una revolución en su totalidad, lo que estamos viviendo en los últimos 5 años en el sector energético no tiene precedentes. Así que grandes desafíos para todas las personas que estamos involucradas en este sector, y obviamente trasladarlo siempre al mayor bienestar de las personas. A nombre del World Energy Council quiero agradecerle profundamente la participación a Sara y a Philip desde la Agencia de Energía de Alemania, allá desde Alemania mismo, en esta mañana y en esta tarde para ellos. A Paula Frigerio de Abastible por estar esta mañana también con nosotros. A David Noé de Transelec por darnos a conocer la iniciativa Pulse. Y por supuesto a Alejandra Salazar, que nos acompaña desde Lima, Perú, esta mañana en la excelente conducción del panel. Estaremos comunicándonos y compartiendo mayor información de estas materias y por supuesto compartiendo con ustedes de otras temáticas referentes a nuestro sector. Muchísimas gracias por acompañarnos. Este webinar quedará grabado en nuestro canal de YouTube, disponible para todas las personas que quieran verlo en nuestra página web de WEC Chile. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias. Chao.
Gracias.
Gracias.
Thank you. Bye bye.